Hello and welcome. This is from the CBN. We bring to you weekly reports and expert analysis of the actions, policies, events, and economic initiatives of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN. I'm Misi Dada. Reactions have continued to follow the decisions of the CBN Monetary Policy Committee at its meeting last week to raise the benchmark interest rate MPR to 15.5% and cash reserve ratio CRR to 32.5%. This is intended to rein in inflation in the country and mop up excess liquidity in the banking sector, respectively. In this episode, we have for you the concluding part of the post-MPC media engagement on Wednesday, the 28th of September, where departmental directors of the Apex Bank met with journalists to provide further clarity on the decisions reached by the MPC and attend to questions agitating the minds of concerned individuals. That's after this break. Stay with us.
When you run a business in Nigeria, cash collection can be such a big deal. At first, it was just you and the product. And then you have a shop, then 10 more shops, in 10 different locations, in 5 different towns. Wow, that's 50 cash points. And 50 cash points could mean 150 different cashiers to manage. Now, that's a big business. With bigger cash collection demands, that's where we come in. Introducing Naira Web Wallet. It makes managing cash collection as easy as ABC. Yes, 3 simple steps. We help you with 1. Setup, 2. Onboarding, and 3. Start your cash collection. With all your cashiers on point, all your customers have to do is this. Walk up to a cash point, scan the QR code, the amount, and bam! Your money is here just like that. We provide 24/7 support for any issues that may arise. We're just a phone call away, or you can also email us. No matter how much the business grows, we're here to grow with you and help you collect more cash every step of the way.
eNaira. Same Naira, more possibilities.
Welcome back. The CBN Monetary Policy Committee at its September meeting noted that the tight monetary policy stance would help consolidate the impact of the last 2 hikes. It also felt that an aggressive rate hike will slow capital outflows and appreciate the Naira. Following this decision, the Apex Bank thought it wise to engage the media, taking questions from them in order to offer more clarity on matters relating to its policy decisions. Now, let's continue from where we stopped the last time.
My name is Ruth Solurombi. I write for Bloomberg, and my questions are, so central bank TBs are below monetary policy rates. When do you intend to normalize them? And so again, another one is that central banks, I want to ask about the CB's, central bank's 9 trillion naira lending to private sector. Do you plan to slow down that? What of the government? Do you see any need to slow that on that too?
We have a corridor, for the MPR. The upper limit we do plus 100 minus 700. It is an abnormality that you see what we call risk-free instruments trading below the MPR. And that is why we've also said that the signaling tool of the MPR is sometimes, the transmission is sometimes weak because of the structure. And that relates to the theoretical question you're asking me, because of the fundamentals of this economy. So you see some theoretical representation that does not, play out within your economy because of some of these structural reduces. But the aim is to this money market rates to go up to a level that will be attractive, such that we don't see treasury rates operating below that, because there's supposed to be a margin for that to grow, and that is already building up within the time. But I agree that that's an abnormality, and we're not expected to have that. But most times, those are supposed to be short-term measures that need to be addressed immediately, and you start seeing the returns on that picking up. It's also a function of the excess liquidity within the system, and those are the things that we want to mop up.
My name is Sodna Kanodu from Punch. Given the peculiarities of Nigeria, where you have exchange rates, Naira getting weaker relatively, when you have several aspects of the economy not actually adding up, do you think that if the inflation rate is probably 40% tomorrow or next month, that is wise to keep increasing interest rate? Because these are things we hear from outside. Then finally, the second question is this. I want to know exactly what the CBN plans to do in terms of how do, especially those segments of the economy where this particular policy is going to impact, like SMEs, like the poor, some of the policies you have for the lower rung of the society. How do you intend to ensure that this particular policy does not have a kind of ripple effect on them?
So that's another genuine reason for also mopping up now. Because when those funds come in huge with the ones that we're having on ground now, then you start seeing the same quantity theory of money playing in that space. Too much money within the system that are not going out, and then we know the channels that these monies go, and that will also, deteriorate this price you are seeing, and you see the inflation. So packing those monies out, even cost to the bank, that we need to do immediately. Ways and means. Yes, the financing of government is a major issue, and the governor also mentioned it in the communique. We are also very mindful of this and making sure that this is highly moderated, because it's also foiling, the liquidity surface that we have within the system. Director of Bank Supervision will speak around whether savings rates will go up. It's actually a percentage of MPR. So as MPR goes up, so the same formula will apply to that.
The Director, CBN Banking Supervision Department, Mr. Haruna Mustafa, was optimistic about the effectiveness of the bank's decision in curbing inflation in the country and allayed the fear that there might be need to continue to raise the interest rate, adding for NITAM.
I'm just going to summarize some of the questions that speak to me directly, and I hope my intervention will address those. One, questions around whether interest rate may go as high as 40% at this rate. Second is that's from leadership, and then the second is from Nancy on the impact of the policy decisions on loans and bank incomes. And then the third one is the one that I think the Director Monetary Policy Department broached it around whether interest on savings will also go up. In terms of the forecast for inflation, whether it will, interest rate, whether, because again, he also talked about effective interest rate, and if there is a lag, whether we continue to raise those rates to keep pace with inflation. Well, that is up in the air. For now, we are very optimistic that some of the measures that have been taken yesterday will yield the desired outcomes. Whether it will get to 40%, is very speculative at this point in time. But for now, what I think we should be focused on is to see how we rein in inflation and achieve our policy objectives. In terms of the impact on bank loans and incomes, clearly, it will have an impact, but it's going to be a bittersweet experience. and this is, excuse me, this is what is going to happen. One, by the rate hike, banks will expectedly reprice their loans. So you will expect to see interest rates on bank loans go up. Of course, as interest rates on bank loans, because that is their traditional function, you will expect a salutary impact on their bottom line. Second, obligors, customers will be at the other end. They will take the brunt, because given that if the cost of loans, interest rate on loans go up, of course the cost of borrowing will go up, and of course obligors will not be happy. But again, when you situate it against the context of the bigger goal, which is to rein in inflation, I think this is very inevitable. But at the same time, there is going to be a trade-off. The customers of banks, will have their loans, even though at a very high cost, but at least it is not going to be too significant that will really impact their own bottom line as well. Whether we are expecting interest rates on savings to go up, like the Director of Monetary Policy mentioned, yes. Interest rate on savings based on the recent circular we issued to the industry is now pegged at 30% of MPR. Don't forget, in the wake of the COVID situation and as part of the measures the bank used, we reduced the interest rate on savings from 30% to 10% of MPR. Now, the prevailing situation, we reverted to the old situation that is at 30% of, and the effective date is this September. So going forward, we expect to see rates. Indeed, a number of the banks have already hearkened to that policy directive by raising their interest rate on savings, and also given the signal of the Monetary Policy Committee at the last meeting, they've also raised lending rates. So there is always that lag effect, but ultimately, the banks have always cooperated with the central bank in terms of implementation of monetary policy, and we expect that given these recent measures, no doubt there will be some, belly aching here and there, but ultimately it is for the benefit of everyone. If we are able to achieve that singular policy goal, it will be like a silver bullet that will address multiple other macroeconomic issues that will be to the benefit of the economy at large.
In his communique, the MPC said it believed that the various credit facilities of the CBN have significantly helped engender growth in the economy, but asked the bank to slow down on its interventions to arrest inflationary implications.
Now, to Director of Development Finance Department, two other questions that just came in. You added to the ones that you have. Where are we on recouping intervention loans like the anchor borrowers? And then secondly, we have heard much about defaults in the repayment of intervention facilities. What are the measures being put in place by the CBN towards recovery of the public funds from these defaulters?
There's a question around whether the interventions, the reason behind us slowing down. Yes, indeed. We already started even before the announcement at the MPC to taper some of the programs that we were doing. But indeed, I can confirm to you that the gates have been closed. Only to make the monetary policy tool that has been deployed is very effective. You definitely constrain the money supply. So indeed, we've closed the gates. Only interventions that are very, very critical. MSMEs that are statutory. We take 5% of every bank's profit after tax. Indeed, it's not a lot to deploy to SMEs. And then supporting the electricity sector is very, very critical. Sure, you all know we'll be providing liquidity. And then we're going into a regime where we're doing what you call the TXDX. So that's the NEMC3, trying to ensure that we bring up support capital items, base stations, and a couple of others. Those are the ones that we deem critical. But indeed, interventions have stopped as at yesterday. Then there was a question around what the total size of the portfolio. Yes, we've lent out 9.3 trillion. As at yesterday, 3.7 trillion has been repaid. Most of them are still under moratorium, especially in manufacturing. Manufacturing forms the largest pie of our portfolio, over 31%. In the last 2 to 3 years, we've moved from agric, that used to be the biggest pie of the lending, to manufacturing. And indeed, like the Director of Monetary Policy spoke, it takes a very long time. You have to order this equipment, you have to put buildings in place, assemble them. So it takes a long time. So in the last 2 to 3 years post-COVID, that we've lent out quite a significant sum to manufacturing, you begin to see the net effect of all those investments in Q4. Nancy asked around monitoring and evaluation. Some of these journalists have followed us to some of the manufacturing facilities. Myself and the Director of BSD, we have a team of people who go around, check the banks to ensure that, once we give out these monies, they are lent to them on time so that they can bid for the FX and they can, do the installations on this plan. So we have a robust monitoring and evaluation framework in place. We not only do that, we carry out post-implementation studies for some of these interventions, and we'll begin to publish some of the results that we've seen in Q4, both in agric, in MSMEs. We've done a post-COVID implementation study. The director, MPD, talked about the size of the stimulus that we pushed out. How effective, if you recall, we went into a recession, but some of the activities that the Monetary Authority embarked on was able to pull us out of this recession. So you begin to see those studies, the results of those studies in Q4. So to answer our question, we have a robust framework. There's a question around repayments. So talking about the portfolio again, most of it is quite securitized. Where we are at risk are really around the MSMEs and then the anchor borrower program. I talked about agric being 21% of the portfolio. One of our best performing interventions is the commercial agri credit scheme, CACs, of which we've lent around 800 and something billion, and almost 700 billion has come back. But there's also a primary production element, which is the anchor borrower program. So to answer your question, we've lent out 1 trillion for the anchor borrower program, of which we've gotten close to 400 billion back. Some of it, yes, are to smallholder farmers. But like I did an interview early this year, and I said every single person who's taking that loan, smallholder farmer, is going to pay. We have his BVN. We are going to be, in fact, we've started what you call the Global Standing Instruction, the GSI. We will continue to pull the accounts in the banks that they lend through, or whichever bank that they have accounts. And anytime we see any funds, we'll recover that. We've also started recovering loans from state governments. We have been doing a loan workout program from them, and we're debiting their FAC directly, for the loans. So if a state government has taken 1 billion and it's already in default, over a 6-month period, we're going to be debiting them 150 million every month. So we started that program. So every single loan that has been given out through any of our intervention program must be paid back. There's absolutely no mercy. So we're in recovery mode as a development finance department, and we're beginning to recover most of the loan. Finally, we're working with EFCC. The governor has approved for ourselves and EFCC to set up a desk to help us recover the loans where we're at risk. I mentioned really around anchor borrower program, and then some of the SME. I'm sure a lot of people took the targeted credit facility that we gave out during the COVID period. So everybody must pay back. It is only when you pay back that we can, it's almost like a revolving scheme. We can have those funds to be able to lend back when we move to a regime where we want to begin to push out funds.
Inflation expectation is an issue in many economies across the world. This is even more so in Nigeria. And of what impact is moral suasion in this matter of inflation?
The next one from Obinna Chima: what is the likely effect of the 32.5% CRR on 65% LDR? Because when CRR was 27.5%, banks were struggling to meet with the LDR target. And then finally, sir, looking at some of the drivers of inflation from domestic perspective, can we also apply moral suasion so that people can appreciate the implications of some of our actions? Because it goes beyond insecurities and infrastructure issues. Thanks, Festus, Financial Edge.
I think one of the things I needed to have mentioned in the earlier part of this is the understanding now that what we call inflation expectation is also playing a big role in the inflation numbers we're seeing. And what that means is that because people believe prices will keep going on, somebody just asked us that what if inflation is 40. It's already thinking that these numbers will be going up. if it's a business person, if it's a trader or something like it, or even if it's a saver, somebody that does investment, is already externalizing this in terms of its behavior now. So it's already feeding into the inflation number. So inflation expectation has implications for the inflation trend we're seeing. And where does moral suasion plays a role there? What we call central bank communication, which is part of what we're doing now. And the statements that the governor makes at the communique of forward guidance. If this happens, this is what we will do. So even before it happens, that if it happens, this is what we will do. So you plan yourself and you are able to, take and we monitor that behavior from our own side. Moral suasion will also be around, people to be a lot more, transparent in the way they do. We have issues, Director of the Web Finance didn't talk about that, of arbitrages that are also feeding into food inflation, where we have hoarding, where people, just accept, and that's why we have the community exchange and other measures that we have put in place to do that. But we still need to, and you guys actually have more role to play there in terms of enlightening people to, do the right things and ensure that this economy belongs to us, and we all need to work together to make it work.
So to nudge banks to increase lending, particularly to the real sector, the central bank introduced the loan to deposit ratio policy, which is basically saying that you need to achieve initially 60% and then later 65% LDR, ratio. And with that policy, we saw bank lending growing up in leaps and bounds, and which had an impact, a positive impact on the growth and recovery efforts that followed even the COVID situation. So we felt encouraged by that, and we feel, given the successes recorded, we need to sustain that. And so, but because the COVID situation came and we needed to allow banks some room to be able to cope with the adverse impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, we sort of relaxed the enforcement of that LDR policy. But recently we signaled the resumption of enforcement, and based on the recent numbers we've also seen an uptick in terms of the number of banks that have met that threshold. So it is a good policy. What the decision of yesterday is again complementary. Like I said, this is to rein in inflation, while at the same time, but we are slowing down in terms of, we are de-emphasizing growth for now, because the major big elephant in the room is inflation, and that informed yesterday's decision. So they are not conflicting policy goals. They are complementary, and they are working in line with our earlier intention. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Biodun Dare from Radio Nigeria. You alluded to the fact that this inflation is mostly driven by excess liquidity. My question is, do you have an idea of where this liquidity is? Where is this liquidity? I ask this against the backdrop of more people being driven into poverty and rising unemployment. So where is the liquidity actually?
The excess liquidity is in the banking system. When we're talking of excess liquidity, we are not saying that your account balances is going up as an individual. No, but the balances of the account of the banks, commercial banks, is going up. And the banks are not creating that credit to move those monies out. Because when you keep your money in the bank don't just keep it there for you to come and take. They use it to lend. That's what we call them financial intermediation channels. So when they don't have those outlets to pull those money, so they either hit the treasury bills, and the question Bloomberg asks is, then you start seeing, because of that excess demand for that, the prices in the money market go down, or they hit the FX market, and start seeing depreciation. So the money is in that, and that's why you have the CRR, the DCR, the treasury, the special bills to mop up, and even the OMOs that we do to mop up all that excess liquidity within the system.
If someone calls or sends you a message that you have payment issues with your bank and requests that you reveal sensitive information, end the call and don't click. It might just be a scam. No bank will ever ask you for your personal identification number, PIN, mobile banking password, or your card verification code, CVC. Scammers always sound genuine, but don't fall for their bait. Don't respond to phony emails or SMS, and don't click on any dubious links. Even if the other party calls your date of birth or your BVN, don't give them your security details. If you suspect there's an issue with your account, the safest thing to do is go to your bank or call the number provided by your bank directly. Protect your bank details so no one steals your money. This message is from the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN.
That's all from the CBN this week. You can report unresolved banking issues to the CBN Consumer Protection Department using the email address cpd@cbn.gov.ng. Attach relevant documents. Call the CBN Contact Center on the phone line +234 700 2255 226. Local call rates may apply. Send your inquiries and comments to the dedicated email address from the CBN@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter for updates and to watch uploaded episodes of the program. We invite you to join us again next time. I am Uliye Misi Dada. Stay safe. Bye for now.